So we'll go ahead and we'll get started. We have two others who may join us. And also later in the agenda, we have a presentation from John Reel, who is already on the phone with us. So move on to announcements, open session, and public comments. Do we have any? Okay, moving on to roll call. We have myself. So we have Allgaier, Aberdale, Annette, Coakley. We have Will Sullivan, John Reel, and John Wolf. Did I miss anyone? Next order of business is the approval of the minutes of meeting from our last meeting, which was May 9th, 2022. So if you like, take a few minutes to refresh your review, and then we can entertain a motion to approve. Okay, anyone want to make a motion?
To the chairman, this is Skip Annette. I move that the Wellfleet Dredging Task Force Committee minutes of meeting May 9th, 2022 at 7 p.m. that these minutes be approved as written.
Kevin, I saw your hand go up. I'm going to take that as a second.
I second it.
Okay.
Good job, Skip.
Thank you. Guess
You guys,
The
the
board-
dynamic duo.
what? The
Okay, on
porgies
to the
are out.
vote. You're not done yet. Kevin,
Aye.
Skip,
All right.
Joe,
Aye.
and Chris, aye. So 4-0. One other administrative item before we move out of this category. I think future meetings, we have the option to, right now, to continue as Zoom, to do them in person, or to make them hybrid. So we can take a minute to think about it. If someone wants to change it from our current format, which is Zoom, then I suggest you state that. Otherwise, we'll stay the course as Zoom meetings. Okay, we will zoom in on your silence. Okay, next item is an update on the permit and the lobbyist activity. Will, can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so as everyone knows, the two property transfers were approved at town meeting on Saturday. So those were two placeholders in the mitigation plan for the credits that we had. Ray, our lobbyist, checked in early this morning. He is updating our congressional delegation, Keating Markey's office, Sarah Peak, those people that he works with. He's updating them on the mitigation plan that those properties got passed, and that we can move ahead. And then we have GEI coming up with a presentation to give the select board on the mitigation plan that Ray and our congressional delegation and have come up with for us, and us have worked out with the Army Corps to present that to them for their approval as well. Now that we have that next step. Unfortunately, town meeting was so late, we had to wait for that, but Nonetheless, we are there. We are at that point for them to give the presentation about the plan that, I mean, Ray and Keating's office and Markey's office have worked tirelessly with the Army Corps, going back and forth with how they do things to come up with. So that's where we are with the permit. We are ready to present that to the select board and then send that based on if their approval or not. Go right to the Army Corps with that.
Okay, any questions or comments on the update? Next item is our 2022 dredging plans, and specifically the construction bid package. So GEI has completed it. It'll go out for bids this week on Wednesday. There'll be a pre-bid meeting with the bidders on Friday, and the bids will be due June the 29th. This is especially good, just as a reminder, the Area 2 dredging design, 80% of it was covered by an SEC grant. So we will have completed that by June 30, by the end of this fiscal year. So we will be reimbursed 80% of the Area 2 design dredging costs. While we're on the topic of funding grants, of course, the big one that's out there is our application to EOHED for a $2.5 million grant, similar to last year. They had a couple of questions about our application, which were easily cleared up. I will say this, they stated that they viewed the application very favorably. They're great supporters of our activities. They fully understand our efforts and what we're trying to do. And so they're working very closely with us. They realize it's the timeline is permit dependent. So we're staying in touch with them and they with us with respect to the actual permit.
They've been extremely helpful. That office has gone out of their way to be very favorable and helpful with us along this process.
Okay, next agenda item is future plans to reduce sedimentation. So John, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Appreciate your interest. The last time we talked, I was discussing a project in which we take the sediment material, the black custard from Mayo Creek, disperse it, and let the natural tides carry it up to the marshes of Duck Creek. I warned at that time dispersion was critical. And in fact, it appears to be so critical that we're a bit stuck on how to move forward on this project. The problem is that the forces that hold the particle together, there's two kinds of forces. One is physical forces, which things just stick together, and the other are chemical forces. And it's fairly easy to deal with the physical forces, but not with the chemical forces. And it looks as though, I did a bunch of calculations, that the particles which are tied together with chemical forces are large enough that you can't guarantee that they would be carried up to Duck Harbor marshes and back out to the bay again. So there's some additional research going on, and it may be that my conclusion is premature, but at the moment I'm unfortunately quite dubious about the ability of this to actually work. I guess about the only good news I have is I managed to get to these conclusions without spending any money. So at least I don't feel guilty on that respect.
You said about transporting to, you may have said Duck Harbor. We mean Duck Creek?
Duck Creek, yes, yeah.
And we would collect these from Mayo Creek.
Yeah.
Which side of the duckbill?
In the harbor.
In the harbor side of the duckbill?
Yeah. The idea would be that if it worked, you wouldn't have to do dredging as often.
Sure. And had you given any thought, or has there been thought as to methods of conveying it? How to move it from point A to point B?
Yeah, just using the natural harbor flow, tidal flow.
Okay. Wait, does that imply taking the duckbill off?
It would certainly help to take the duckbill off.
Okay.
What about opening up the gate on it?
It would certainly help to do that. It would, that would probably reduce the rate of sedimentation. But
I didn't think there was a gate.
Well, it's not a gate,
that-
but it's a piping that comes out and can be regulated to be open more than it is today.
Yeah, but I think it's an on-off thing, but take the duckbill off, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's the best one.
this is part of the wastewater management project now, which the wastewater committee is working on. But something that Chris said ties into a new idea, which has come up with discussions that I've had with the National Seashore. And there's a process called thin layer deposition, which is used to build up salt marshes against the risk of climate change and sea level rise. This has been used in Rhode Island and the Gulf Coast, and the Cape Cod National Seashore is very interested in this to protect a marsh like Middle Meadow out on the west side of the harbor. So the idea there is that something like the black custard material would be sprayed out onto the salt marsh. I find it, I'm not quite sure I can visualize exactly what that means, but the transportation would be by a small barge. And the advantage is you don't need the full dispersion. You can get away with much less critical dispersion. One other downside.
Excuse me, but the dispersion would in fact be on the marshland, not just into the harbor, but more so onto the marshland.
It would be out onto the marsh. You put the material out onto the marsh itself.
Right.
But you don't want to put big clumps out there. You want to have a fine spray.
Yeah, no, to me, it would almost be like a large orifice golf course sprinkler.
There you go. I'm not a golfer, so I didn't think of that. There is a permitting issue that this is not allowed in Massachusetts. But we could do a test on Middle Meadow because that's seashore property, that's federal property. And I think that the pressure of climate change and sea level rise would give us a strong argument to change the permitting.
Mm-hmm. Have you had any discussion or positive indication from the seashore, from, for example, the superintendent?
I've not gone to the superintendent. I've gone to the science department, and they're very supportive. I think it would be possible if we had a workable method to convince the management, because otherwise they lose the marsh. And the marshes are critical not only to seashore property, but to the whole harbor. So it's a long shot, just as my first idea was, but it has been done elsewhere. So we know that there's some feasibility, and I hope we can get enough support to move this project forward.
Yeah, our recent discussions had been about thin layer deposition, ultimately, eventually to Herring River restoration in conjunction with hydraulically dredging it and pumping it, et cetera. We were looking for a demonstration project, much smaller. There's a bit of a marsh over there by Powers Landing, but your suggestion, I think, might be more feasible because it's seashore. So as a demonstration and as a ability to get approval, might be more feasible.
That's the
I-
advantage of working with the federal property, yeah.
Yeah, I would propose that collectively, you're saying the wastewater committee is working on it? Kinda, sorta?
No, it would, at this moment, need to be a cooperation between NRAB and probably your group. And I would love to have someone who I could talk with and be a partner in this. Because in the end, it's an engineering project, and it needs some people with some engineering background and practical background. I'm a scientist and maybe not as adept in some of these practical matters as others.
I would propose this, that we work together on it jointly and open it up to anyone on this committee who wants to participate. We
Okay,
put the plan together. It sounds like the plan would have words like scows, pumps,
Yep.
thin layer deposition, et cetera. And we could perfect the plan and then go see the seashore with it.
well, I think the other way around is my contact at the seashore is Dr. Steve Smith. So I think if I take it there's interest, I'll talk with Steve and see if we can't bring him in as well, because it is their property we'd be using as a model.
Yeah.
There is one other thing. This is not until the first Saturday in November the 6th. There's a woman called Megan Tyrell is giving a presentation at the Wellfleet Harbor Conference on this very subject. So look for announcements about that. And it would be a good background learning experience.
Yeah, that's good. Let me ask the other members. Ask the other members of the task force. You guys, first of all, in concurrence with moving ahead on this possibly alternate demonstration location, and if anyone wants to participate in putting the plan together, let me know. So, first question is, are people in favor of moving forward as just described?
I'm in favor of it.
Okay. Everybody, a couple of head nods, good. And then
I will go with you, Chris,
Skip, you good? Okay.
because I had gone through some with what they're doing in New Jersey on thin layer deposition. I know Rhode Island's working on it also.
Yeah, but don't go trotting out that Gowanus Canal stuff on us.
No,
Okay.
but it's also down in Delaware. That's gonna be the other.
Yeah,
part.
that's true. That's true.
But the thing is, if this is true about it's not allowed in Massachusetts, that becomes a whole big ballgame.
I've heard two versions of that. Well, maybe three. I've heard that it's not allowed. I've heard it is allowed, and I've heard that they're warming up to the idea of allowing it. So
Yeah, because we wouldn't be the only town that needs to do this
Yeah.
type of thing to get rid of harbor material.
yeah. So
I think the leverage point is that if climate change produces the sorts of sea level rise that it might, and you start losing marshes, you really have disrupted the biology of the harbor. So that's really the incentive, I think, that would, I hope, swing their mind about changing the requirements, the permitting requirements.
yeah, no, you're right. Things have changed. Conditions have changed dramatically in the last decade, and maybe some updated education for all of us would get them on board. So, John, you're going to touch base with Dr. Steve Smith first,
Right.
okay, and then you'll get back to us.
Yep.
Okay, and let me
Yeah,
know. In the
and-
meantime, we'll put our heads together as to how we could actually transport and quite frankly, spray thin layer deposition.
That would be great. I
John,
think
is
what we have
there-
to do is find a small area of the marsh where we could run a test and see how, it would take several years for us to be able to see how it's working, but we could see how it compares to the control, which is the rest of the
Right.
marsh.
But in the meantime, we could confirm a means of transporting and dispersing it.
Absolutely.
Hey, John, I believe there was a group, I don't know if it's around the New Seabury area, somewhere in that part of the Cape that's trying to work on this similar project as well. I'm not sure if it's part of Woods Hole Group too, or I remember we had somewhat of a conversation with the Barnstable County Dredge. I think we were talking about it a little bit. But there is a group, outside the committee, but I think there is a group that's trying to work on this too, in that area. It might be useful to.
If it happens to come to mind who this is or where there's a contact, I'd love to know.
Yeah, I'll reach out to the coordinator for the county dredge and ask him who that was again, because he's pretty up on that end of the Cape as well, and get us into contact with that group that was starting it. Because one of the things I thought was that even if they started it as well and put their money into the engineering and stuff, we could always piggyback on a project like that and kind of ride their wave. So I'll get that information for you.
Okay, great.
Okay, next item is the sand shoaling off the breakwater, off the jetty. And the RFP for engineering drawings and permits is with Rebecca and ready for posting. So I suspect now that town meeting has passed, she'll be able to post it in the next week or two.
Chris, thank you. I'm going to cut off now.
Okay, thank you, John. Under miscellaneous, at our last meeting, Alfred had a question and a concern about the spoils from dredging under the L pier and vis-a-vis the town lease with Max on the pier. And he suggested or asked for professional opinion. And so we did. We reached out to KP Law. They responded. I sent that response out to everyone. I believe it was this past Saturday. And then, Will, you have any other information on that issue?
Yeah, we also talked with the DPW and with the group at Max itself to make sure of the scheduling and coordinating in the time period for that none of us would run into a problem with each other. And everyone was very mutually agreeable on that, considering especially that it's not the same time of year that we're doing any of that work. So everyone in the parties involved was very agreeable to that.
Yeah, Will, I personally talked to Mac on that. It's when I was trying to find out the dimensions of the area, which there's not anything in the original license folder yet that defines it. But Mac said that if there was needs to go into his area that's 60 feet from out from the deck, that he wouldn't see a problem of us because he doesn't have tables there.
Okay, so kind of like this item is closed.
Skip, Max footprint, that's what he owns.
No, the footprint that I'm talking about is the one that's in the licensee that he's paid $7,500 into the marina fund. And that one is 40 feet wide by 60 feet from the edge of the deck.
Right. And that's where they've been dropping the spoils for the last one that they did.
That's correct. The spoils were dropped there in the wintertime. And they only need a short time period to dewater, being that type of sand that it is. And then the DPW has said that they can haul it out of there in plenty of time. Because considering they'll be doing the majority of the excavating as well, so.
Okay, that's everything on the agenda for tonight. Absent any other discussion, we can move on and schedule when we should have our next meeting. Staying with Mondays, that takes us perhaps to July 18th or July 24th.
The 18th works for me.
18th works for me also.
Okay, Joe, you good with 18th?
Fine with me.
Okay. Usual time, 7 p.m. All right. Next and last item is a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
Okay, the vote. Kevin,
Aye.
Skip,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Chris, aye. All right, that covers it.
Have a good
Thank you,
night.
everyone. Good night. Glad your leg's okay.
Thanks.
Oh, Chris,
Yes.
I put my boat in tonight. And
Oh,
when I was-
okay.
When I was leaving the floats, before I got to the gangway that's closest to Pearl, in the water, there was a big school of pogies. You would never seen that at low tide like it was today. 'Cause it
Somebody
got
spread.
that 7 feet of water.
Somebody spread the word. There's deep water there, huh?
And there were turtles. There must have been a dozen turtles. So it's changed things to the better.
Good. Good. All right. Good night, everyone.